Let's go, offense, let's go.
The rain has moved through. The sun is shining. A picture-perfect evening from M&T Bank Stadium. This is Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity. It's scrimmage night tonight. Guys in full pads, full uniform. Sam Cook, John Harbaugh, Justin Tucker, getting prepared for, I guess you could best call it, a bit of a dress rehearsal. No preseason, so these opportunities are critical for young players and old to get their mind and bodies right for week one. Evan Washburn back with you alongside Cliff Brown. And Cliff, it's been a historic 48 hours in the sports world and continues to be in our world at large. And this organization made a statement Thursday evening. We were with you Thursday morning. Cliff, you had some words that were powerful. This team came together after that practice, and as I pointed out, made a statement Thursday evening that really sent ripples and waves through the sports world and really set the standard for how you should respond to things when it comes to social justice and the fight for equality.
Yeah, I'd agree, Evan. When the Ravens arrived at the Under Armour Performance Center on Thursday morning, obviously all the talk was about what had transpired the night before with the Milwaukee Bucks leading the charge of different teams not playing to take a stand and draw attention to the things that have been going on in this country. And the Ravens definitely wanted to do something on Thursday moving forward where they could do something specific. So a lot of teams didn't practice Thursday in various sports or play. The Ravens decided to practice, but once they did, they wanted to get their work done. John Harbaugh mentioned talking to Anthony Levine and other players even before practice started. They thought about maybe doing something Friday. Instead, they said, well, let's just get right to it after practice. Let's do it. So it resulted in a lengthy meeting that resulted, I think, in some specific things that the Ravens can be proud of as far as actions they want to take.
Yeah, let's take a look at portions of this statement, Cliff, and I'll pivot back to you for what people need to know in terms of why this statement was different and is different from some we've seen over the course of time from teams and really anybody when making a public statement.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, it gives some specific points that the Ravens want to do, not just talking about that we're frustrated, things need to change. The hardest part is going from bringing attention to these issues to doing something about them. And a lot of voices were heard from during this meeting, coaches, players, and I think that one thing that came out of it was certainly they want to move forward with the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to see that bill pass before the Senate. It's already going before Congress, but the Senate is awaiting vote on it. The Ravens pointed to that specifically as something they want to see done moving forward to help social change. And so, as I mentioned before, so many voices being heard. It's not like every player or every coach may agree with everything in this statement. But I think the key was it's strong, it's very broad as far as its stance on combating racism and social injustice, but it's very specific as far as things that the Ravens want to do moving forward to move this along. So it's certainly something that took a lot of thought. It was a lengthy meeting, it was an emotional meeting, but this statement has drawn a lot of attention, not just in the NFL, but from other leagues and people, commentators all over the country. I've seen many people talk about this is kind of thing you want to see from a team or an organization that is really moving forward in this fight. It's going to take a lot of time. There's going to be some ups and downs, but I think the Ravens, once again, have taken a forefront in a leadership role in this fight.
Yeah, it seems to have really set the blueprint. And John Harbaugh spoke on Friday to give a sense of how this all came together. What was most important from your mind from John's comments on Friday, Cliff?
Well, I think it was interesting. I was struck by, he said that he was even surprised at how emotionally drained he was afterwards. But he also obviously was proud of how the team and the coaches were able to come up with the statement that they did and be able to really, in a short period of time, point to some things that could be done. You know, John Harbaugh, I think, has shown real leadership, as he always does, through this, and allowing players to have a voice. You know, they have the leadership council. They've obviously got some great individuals on this team. He lets those voices be heard, and everyone feels included so that when they decide to move forward, it's not like one or two people are pushing the agenda. Everyone has a chance to weigh in.
Players have been empowered, and one of those players, Cliff, Calais Campbell, who spoke to the media earlier today and lent his perspective on the idea that the power the players have is at its strongest, in his opinion, when they're on the field playing.
I feel like that our voice is stronger when we're on the field. Our voice is stronger when if we can, play well enough to be in that last game. In February, I feel like that's when our voice is strongest. But everybody has their own opinions, and we'll talk through it and try to make decisions that are best for all of us.
And Cliff, this has been a conversation point, as we've seen in the NBA and other sports professionally that are playing at the moment, deciding not to play games. But as you heard there, Calais saying their voice, in his opinion, may be strongest by being out on the field. How do you see this playing out as this team and as this league gets closer to games that matter in week one?
Well, obviously, Calais is excited about playing this season. He's also excited about trying to win a Super Bowl and doing things to further the fight against social injustice. Why not do all of that? What bigger stage is there than the Super Bowl to talk about anything you want to talk about for a 2-week period? So if the Ravens play well this year and make it to as he said, that last game in February, they'll have a platform to talk about the things that they want to talk about in addition to having a chance to win the Super Bowl. So it's something he wants to do, accomplish both goals. That's his mission this year.
Let's hear a little bit more from Calais Campbell.
I think football is a good representation of what America could be, because you got people coming from different backgrounds, from social, economical backgrounds to, different races and beliefs, and you come together and it's like you put all your differences aside just for one common goal, and I feel like, in the locker room we've had so many incredible conversations about politics, about religion, about life, about philosophy, everything.
And Cliff, John Harbaugh echoed those statements when he spoke as well about the power of team and the power of a football team. And as we've said, conversations are the starter for this, and this football team and many football teams seem to be leading the way in that front. Yeah,
I think reason why so many athletes get it as regards to racial relations is because sports forces you, team sports, to play next to guys of different races, religions, and you have to depend on each other for success. I mean, if you're in a locker room with a Calais Campbell, it's difficult not to have respect for him. If you're in the locker room with a guy like Mark Andrews, it's difficult not to have respect for him. And those guys understand, particularly Calais, as the reigning NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year, he's had an exemplary life on and off the field, not just for a black person, but for any person. And he understands that this fight against racial inequality and for social justice isn't just a fight for black people, it's a fight for all people. And he's a guy who's become an instant leader on his team because of his credibility, and he's obviously moving that fight forward.
And Cliff, the conversation will continue throughout the season, but we will take the players' lead, at least for tonight, and get back out on the field and talk some football. As you can see, they are getting ready for scrimmage night. So we'll break down what's ahead here on Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity, after a short timeout.
Feel like you've watched all the things? Now there's more to love with Xfinity X1, the ultimate entertainment experience. Like live sports, they're back with the best way to watch. And more streaming apps all in one place. More classics, more premieres, plus more to easily find using just your voice. Hello, more. Where have you been all my life?
Get this offer now with DVR service included for a year. Plus, get speed, coverage, and security with the X-Fi Gateway. Click, call, or visit a store today.
If the last few months have taught us anything, it's that we really, really miss football. It's coming, and Ravens scratch-offs from the Maryland Lottery are already here. Play now for a chance to win up to $100,000 or second chance cash and Ravens prizes like seats for 20 years. Please play safely and responsibly.
I can't be covered.
It is hard by Hollywood Brown.
I can't be covered.
Touchdown, Willie Snead.
Except now.
Except now.
Except now.
I wear a mask because I care.
I wear a mask because I care about my family.
My family, my kids, my parents.
My teammates.
My coaches.
My fellow Marylanders.
Because I care about you.
Because I want us to watch football together again.
Because I want our stadium full again.
Because I want to jump into the stands.
So wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
And stop the spread. Mask on, Maryland.
That's a buffalo flatbread bullseye for my mouth to aim at. Oh, hiding, huh? The new grilled buffalo chicken papadilla. Tangy buffalo sauce, grilled chicken, and melty cheese for just $6. Papa John's.
Welcome back to Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity. Check out the new Maryland Lottery Ravens scratch-off games. Pick up Ravens scratch-offs for your chance to win up to $100,000 instantly. There are great second chance prizes as well, like cash and the Ravens fan experiences, including season tickets for next year and seats for 20 years. Hurry and enter before September 22nd for your chance to win a pair of season tickets. They're great seats for the 2021 season. Visit mdlottery.com/Ravens for all the details. Back here with some live pictures from M&T Bank Stadium. Clip as I grab my scratch off. I talked to Ryan about this. I'll get your thoughts. If one of us wins, we team up. This has been a team effort for the last 6 or 7 days. How do you feel about that?
Oh, excellent. I mean, we definitely moving forward here. We do everything as a team, so why not this, right?
Absolutely. That's what I like to hear. Ryan wanted to take his money and run. Cliff, as we get set for scrimmage night here, you see some of the offensive linemen going through some drills. Such an important evening for so many players on this roster. But it is important to look back to Thursday's practice as well, because some things happened on the field. And via our top plays presented by Oakley, a chance to talk about Thursday. The offense making some plays here with the top plays, but the defense was tough to handle as well.
Yeah, I thought the defense won the day on Thursday. We saw a lot of guys making plays, getting their hands on the football. Passes, were being denied. Coverage was tight. We know how good the Ravens secondary is, but really the whole defense to me has been flying around. It's obvious to me that the Ravens are a step faster on defense this year. They've got the young linebackers. You've got Deshaun Elliott giving them a different look. So, yeah, everything that the offense got in Thursday, they had to earn, but I definitely think the defense won the day.
James Brochet fielding some punts here. Such an important part of these stadium practices. As has been the case all training camp long, we want to hear from you. Head to Facebook, the comment section, with your comments. You can produce the show at times, obviously questions. We'll get Cliff on the hot seat and have him answer some of those. But Cliff, scrimmage night tonight, you see guys in the full pads, the game uniforms, Willie Snead lathered up right now, fielding some punts. What's important, broad strokes, about what fans are going to be able to see over the course of the next 30 minutes here, but then when we can recap this thing starting Monday morning?
Well, we're getting closer and closer to the start of regular season. They will be scrimmaging tonight, and there's still decisions that have to be made as far as starters and reps. We were looking at the offensive line right there. I mean, who is going to be the starting right guard? We're very close to finding that out. So this is a night where you really want to shine. The Ravens, having yesterday with the walkthrough, but not having the padded practice yesterday. Everybody should be fresh. It's late in the day. There's a lot of things at stake, so I expect the intensity level to be high. And this is a very important practice because, again, you don't have the preseason games to use to make decisions. So this is as closest to live action as you're going to get in the stadium with a padded practice.
Marquise Hollywood Brown ready to go live. And speaking of that, Cliff, John Harbaugh made an interesting point when he spoke to the media on Friday about what rookies are missing out on with no preseason. Take a listen.
It's been an interesting camp, and Matt Judon kind of pointed this out yesterday in one of our conversations, that normally as a rookie in training camp, you really get an opportunity to let some steam out when you play the games. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of, I don't know if it's uncertainty, but just opportunity to prove yourself. You don't know. You want to get out there in the field and do what you do and play and establish yourself. Okay, I've played an NFL game. And I can, so many times after the first preseason game, you hug those guys in the locker room, and it's such a relief. You play your first NFL game, you made some tackles, you made some catches, you blocked some people, and you're like, I can do this. I can play. I can play in the National Football League. Those guys haven't had that. They've had practice. They haven't had a game, and they're not going to get a game. And I think there's a certain amount of stress that builds up for those guys in this instance. And I really, I feel for them a little bit, especially since I can understand this is the 2020 class. The 2020 class, high school, college, they're all facing this very, very, very strange time. And I commend them for the way they've handled it, not just our players, but all those in the 2020 classes all across the country and who've handled it the right way.
And Cliff, I don't think this can be said enough that while Devin Duvernay, James Prochet, they've come from established programs, they've now been a part of this organization for a number of months and a number of weeks in the building. They've had some intense practices, but the preseason games may not matter on the record, but just being out there with stakes, it being televised, all those things, usually fans in the stands, that does offer a sense of, okay, I've gotten that out of the way when guys can play. And then it obviously gets elevated in week one. But I think tonight is going to be a chance for them to at least shake off some of that trepidation, because they're going to have some live periods, as we understand it, out here for these guys.
Yeah, no question. You're looking at Prochet there. I mean, if he wins the starting punt return job, which he might, his first real punt return in the NFL is going to be in a real game. And no matter how many reps you get before week one, it's going to feel different to him. So you'll want to see him obviously handle the ball well tonight, because that'll give you a better feeling that he's ready to do it week one. But it is unusual. He won't have the preseason games to get whatever rust there is out the way. He's also a guy looking to make an impact as a wide receiver, much like Devin Duvernay. Duvernay, as you mentioned, big college program, Texas. He's looked good in practice. He has sure hands, but there's no feeling like week one. It's just a ramp up from the preseason. So right now we're going to go from this year, training camp or practices, to the week one with no preseason in between. That's definitely going to be a challenge for the wide receivers and all the rookies. But these guys are talented, and if you can handle that, you've got to feel good about what they'll do moving forward.
So much mystery heading into week one, and you saw Lamar Jackson there talking to James Prochet. He's got to get his trust as well. This is a look at the Ravens draft class, not including the top two picks in J.K. Dobbins and Patrick Queen. But as we look at this list, Cliff, these are guys that, as we mentioned, will benefit from tonight. But there are names on this list, whether it's Prochet, whether it's Duvernay, Harrison, that are probably going to play some role starting in that week one home game on this field against the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, you can maybe look at a guy like Broderick Washington as a guy who, he's going to get some reps probably. And then Dobbins, of course, we've all talked about how good he looks as a running back. He's ready to go, it looks like to me, to make some plays right away this year. There's so much talent in that backfield. It is a luxury for the Ravens that they don't have to depend on Dobbins right away. If he is feeling some jitters week one, there's plenty other guys, between obviously Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, and Justice Hill, that you can turn to. But Dobbins, I think, as a guy you can throw in there, give him some touches, he has a chance to make some big plays right away. A guy that other teams have never seen before in a Ravens uniform. So how are they going to use him? He's shown, as you see, soft hands as a receiver. So he may end up being a guy who makes his first big play not as a runner, but as a receiver.
And Cliff, it should be noted, and this may seem arbitrary, but what we're seeing over the course of the first few minutes here, and as we'll carry you through Training Camp Live, this is truly a pregame rehearsal. They're not doing individual drills as we've seen at training camp. This is a chance for these young guys to understand, okay, you get to the stadium. You have to be out on the field at this point. You got to be in full pads at this point. These are some of the drills. This is what makes 2020 so unique, Cliff, is that these young guys have no opportunity to go through this with no preseason games, so that's what they're going to achieve on top of some of the schematic football stuff over the course of the next few hours here. They just got to figure out how to warm up.
Yeah, I mean, you can't replicate game day, but the Ravens are trying to do it as much as you can. And obviously coming here to the stadium is one way you can do it. Going through your normal routine that they'll be going through in a couple of weeks when they play the Browns right here is another way to do it. So it's funny. It's like, your Broadway plays, you rehearse. Usually then opening night, you have the crowd in front of you, and that makes a difference. This year, there won't be a crowd week one, but the stakes will be just as high. The Ravens want to get off to a good start this year. I think that, as I mentioned before, they're one of those teams with so much talent and so many experienced players and so much depth. I think they have an excellent chance to start off on the right foot. But part of the process is getting used to these new surroundings as far as no fans, and for the rookies, new surroundings in general. They're doing that tonight.
Head to Facebook, get in the comments section with your questions. We'll answer them next. More Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity, coming up.
Wawa hoagies are a winning pick for game day. Every hoagie's made with the ingredients you crave in varieties you love. From toasty cheesesteak to mouthwatering meatball, Italian, and more. There's a hoagie for every mood and every appetite. Stop in, order ahead with the Wawa mobile app, or get it delivered. When you're planning for the game, we have you covered with Wawa Catering. Make your game day a winner with Wawa hoagies, snacks, and drinks. Wawa is the official hoagie of the Baltimore Ravens. Gotta have a Wawa.
You can see it in the eyes of every Ravens fan. An unwavering commitment to the team they love. A pride so vibrant, it can be seen from miles away. A community that's fully committed to their team and shows up week after week to help chase a championship. To the Ravens flock, to Chet starters, to those who bleed purple, M&T Bank wants to say, we're your biggest fan.
We all make our voices heard on game day.
1, 2, 3, we all we got.
But on Election Day, only 60% of eligible Americans even showed up to vote.
Only 60%?
60%?
60% isn't good enough.
We each have a responsibility, an opportunity to be heard.
To choose our representation.
And it's easy.
Visit risetovote.org
And register to vote. And register to vote.
Let's all be heard this Election Day.
Get a papadilla at papajohns.com for just $6. Papa John's, official pizza of the Baltimore Ravens. Back here, scrimmage night at M&T Bank Stadium. Training Camp Live presented by Xfinity. Taking you close to 6 p.m. Eastern here as the team gets set. And Cliff, Willie Snead has had a really strong camp. I know you've been impressed with what he's been able to do. Obviously an established vet, but looks to be in great shape, making plays downfield, not just doing his thing in the blocking game or in that slot. He's our Frank's red-hot player profile.
Yeah, Willie, obviously the weight that he dropped in the offseason has really helped him. It's translated into, I believe he's a little bit quicker. He looks great coming out of breaks. He's catching everything. We know he's a physical receiver who loves blocking and can really help the running game in that area. But as you can see here, he's decisive once he catches the football. And I think he's going to be a guy who has more yards after catches this year. I think his targets are going to go up this year because I just think he's going to be a guy that when Lamar goes back to throw, much like a Mark Andrews, he's going to be a guy who's open. So, he's all willing to do anything for the sake of the team, but all wide receivers want to catch the football. Let's face it. I mean, that's what makes him tick. I think Willie's put himself in great position to get a bigger piece of the pie this season.
And look, it's not lost on him as much as he's valued here, and you can see that contractually. They drafted 2 young wide receivers, and Marquise comes in healthy, so he knows he's got to make a play to gain the trust of Lamar, and he's done that a bunch over the course of training camp, and he definitely has the trust of this quarterback and this offense. A look at Malik Harrison. Cliff, everything that we've said about Patrick Queen has really followed where he was selected and the expectations that have been thrust upon him. But Malik Harrison's also had a really strong camp. How do you see this shaking out? LJ Fort seems to be the guy that's going to be next to Queen week 1, but Malik Harrison is playing like a guy who's ready to make an impact in year 1 as well.
Without a doubt. I think Malik has shown more quickness and athleticism than his rep said when he came out of Ohio State. He's known as a thumper and a run stopper. He is that, but he had several plays in practice this week chasing quarterbacks out of the pocket and almost running down Tyler Huntley on one play before he got out of bounds, showing a lot of speed, which definitely got praises from the coaches. Malik, LJ Ford, and then obviously Patrick Queen, they've got a nice rotation now at inside linebacker. So he's a guy, even if he doesn't start right away, as you mentioned, Evan, I think he's going to be in the mix right away as far as getting some reps.
And that was such an area of concern out of the gate last year. They had to basically revamp it on the fly. They were able to do so successfully. And part of that also included Chuck Clark stepping in for Tony Jefferson after he suffered that knee injury against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 5. And he's just run with the job and now become really the anchor and the quarterback of the defense. And he's got a lot more on his plate now because he has to help bring along a younger safety next to him in Deshaun Elliott. How has Chuck Clark been on the field when it comes to football over the course of camp from your mind?
I think he's been terrific. I love the way, John Harbaugh described him, what is bold, brief, and brilliant. He's that guy to me. He's just always where he's supposed to be. And this year, I think he's going to be in position to make more plays. He looks like he's got such a handle on the defense that even though he is going to be a mentor to Deshaun Elliott, he's going to be in position to make plays. And he's only has two career interceptions. I think that number is going up this year. I think he may get more than 2 this year as opposed to what he's done his whole career. We all know what kind of leader he is, but I think Chuck Clark's going to be a little bit more of a playmaker this year.
And Cliff, this is a good chance to talk about that outside linebacker, that rush linebacker opposite Matthew Judon as we look at this group right now, getting some work in ahead of this scrimmage tonight. And Tyus Bowser, somebody we discussed earlier this week as being in a critical year, a contract year, showed flashes at the back half of last season's, looked good in camp. How do you continue to see this position and really that position battle shaping up if he's got Jihad Ward and also Pernell McPhee in the mix?
No question. I'm glad you mentioned Pernell there because to me, he's just quietly doing his thing, kind of laying in the woods till the season starts. And Pernell was having a terrific season before his season-ending injury last year. I think with the way that Ferguson has come on, obviously the way Bowser has come on, and you've got Matthew Judon there as the anchor of the pass rush, there's no reason that Pernell's going to get burnt out as far as, having too many reps. So every time Pernell's on the field, I think he's going to have a lot of juice. We've talked about how the improved defensive line, I think, is going to help the pass rush, and that Calais Campbell, Derek Wolfe, they're going to occupy a lot of offensive linemen, which is going to leave Pernell able to get to the edge with a lot of one-on-one matchups. And I think that this pass rush is definitely going to be improved this year. And it wouldn't surprise me to see some guys, particularly Bowser, maybe he'll challenge Judon for the sack leadership this year on the team. We'll see.
I can't wait to see what Bowser has in store because we've seen this from players in that position in this organization before. A bit of a slow start possibly, but that contract year, they seem to break out. I mean, you can go down the list. Pernell McPhee was one of those guys, took the big money, went to Chicago, and then comes back home here to wrap up his career. But Tyus Bowser, if he's able to do that, that would really add an element needed to this defense to get that sack total up. We talked about how they got after the quarterback, but they would have loved a few more sacks. So we'll see what they're able to do and Tyus is able to do here in 2020. And they'll have a chance, from what we understand it, to get physical tonight, Cliff, because there are going to be periods you would imagine where they're going to go, maybe not full contact, live, full tackling, but as close to it as they can in keeping these guys safe. Because while the rookies want to figure out how to play in the stadium and shake the nerves, the other guys also just need to kind of shake the cobwebs of getting popped a little bit, right?
Yeah, no question. You want to get some of that out the way before week 1. And, hey, I love coming to the stadium. I mean, to me, it's just a different atmosphere for everybody. Players get excited about it, not just the rookies, the vets. Even though, fans aren't here and it's not a game, just being in this building where you have so many fond memories. I mean, think about all the memories Lamar has in this place already in his short career here. There's a lot of players you can point to the same thing. Look how much success they had in this place last year, going 14-2. So I think just being in this building amps up the level of intensity, and players know that, hey, in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from now, it'll be the night before week 1. So it's getting close, and they really want to show tonight. You want to show your best stuff tonight, particularly if you're somebody vying for playing time or vying for a spot on the roster.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. We probably haven't said it enough. This roster is going to be trimmed considerably over the next 7 to 10 days ahead of that week 1. And here's a comment coming in from Austin. The 7 Nation Army song is already getting me hyped. It's getting us all hyped, Austin. It's fun to be back in the bank, and we'll continue with more from Training Camp Live here at the stadium after this short break.
Feel like you've watched all the things? Now there's more to love with Xfinity X1, the ultimate entertainment experience. Like live sports, they're back with the best way to watch, and more streaming apps all in one place. More classics, more premieres, plus more to easily find using just your voice. Hello, more. Where have you been all my life?
Get this offer now with DVR service included for a year. Plus, get speed, coverage, and security with the XFi Gateway. Click, call, or visit a store today.
Wawa hoagies are a winning pick for game day. Every hoagie's made with the ingredients you crave in varieties you love. From toasty cheesesteak to mouthwatering meatball, Italian, and more. There's a hoagie for every mood and every appetite. Stop in, order ahead with the Wawa mobile app, or get it delivered. When you're planning for the game, we have you covered with Wawa Catering. Make your game day a winner with Wawa hoagies, snacks, and drinks. Wawa is the official hoagie of the Baltimore Ravens. Gotta have a Wawa.
Ravens flock, here's your chance to play GM. Enter the You Pick the Team presented by MedStar Health contest and predict the Ravens' opening 53-man roster for a chance to win a Lamar Jackson autographed jersey. Make your picks by September 4th at BaltimoreRavens.com/YouPickTheTeam. Taking you close to 6 p.m. Eastern here ahead of tonight's scrimmage. A look at the cornerback group, that defensive back in that secondary for the Ravens, a vet, Jimmy Smith, who's had a really strong camp, well documented, some of the weight loss of the offseason to make himself even more explosive. And here's a question. Remember Facebook, the comment section, that's where you try and contact us, and we'll do our best to get to you. Jackson wanting to know, how's Deshaun Elliott, looking, Cliff? So it's been one of the main stories of camp. Deshaun Elliott, who's been part of this organization for a number of years, a 6th-round pick that's shown flashes, but just has had a hard time staying healthy over the course of the last week or so since he's been thrust into the spotlight. How do you feel like he's responded?
I think he's responded very well. He looks quick to the football. He doesn't look like a guy who is in any way feels like this situation is too big for him. And he certainly doesn't sound like it's too big for him. I mean, he's one of the more confident guys you're ever going to meet. Teammates and coaches get a kick out of it. But there's a thing is false confidence and real confidence. I think his confidence is definitely real. He was a playmaker in college. He expected to be drafted much higher in the 6th round. When he wasn't, that rubbed him the wrong way, like I'm going to prove guys wrong. Then, of course, the injuries in both of his first 2 seasons, he hasn't had an opportunity to play, but he's had a chance to learn. We talk about sometimes it's hard for quarterbacks to play right away. It can be hard for anybody. Deshaun, after these 2 years learning, I think he can really start making a difference as a starter.
Cliff, a chance here, a great shot of the O-line and D-line getting after it a little bit. We talked about who's going live, how much of physical practice and scrimmage this could be. I think we don't probably say it enough. These guys up front, I mean, there's not much of an off day for them. It's pretty much live when they're in pads every time they meet in the trenches. And this offensive line is starting to shake itself out, as we've seen a lot of rotations over the course of camp. And that was by plan by John Harbaugh and this staff. They wanted to see the versatility they had. But over the course of the next week here, things are going to have to settle in, and that right guard is going to have to really establish himself. And DJ Fluker's done a nice job there, along with some of the other younger guys.
He has, and yeah, I mean, the offensive line, we know how important it is in any offense, but definitely in a Greg Roman offense when you want to run the football as much as they do. You're looking at them doing their work there. I saw Matt Skura earlier. That's really been encouraging to see him get more and more in the mix every day. Coming off that serious knee injury, he's done an incredible job rehabbing. Then you see Bradley Bozeman, a guy who he won his starting spot last year at left guard during training camp. Ronnie Stanley, one of the best in the business. I think he is the best left guard in the business. This offensive line is a strength for the Ravens. They've been able to, as you mentioned, move some guys around to look at some things, but right about now is when you want to start building continuity for week one. The Ravens losing Marshall Yonder, a guy you can't replace. It's a challenge that the whole offensive line is taking on this year, and we'll get to see pretty soon how they handle it.
Yeah, and that was the question there from Pablo. We appreciate the questions on Facebook. And I think we've done our best to document how the competition at right guard has gone over the course of camp. DJ Fluker is the name that we keep going back to, but Ben Powers trying to do what Bradley Bozeman did, be a draft pick that works his way into a starting role a couple of years into the program. And there's Devin Duvernay, who is fighting for time at the wide receiver position, maybe that third wide receiver alongside this man, Marquise Brown and Willie Snead. Marquise Brown has just continually, day in and day out, found a way to make plays. He's getting stronger, it would appear, over the course of camp, which is a good sign, putting a lot of pressure on that foot that he's finally gotten healthy. And tonight's a chance for Marquise and Lamar to continue their chemistry and just to see where it's grown, Cliff. I mean, their story's great because it goes back to their days in South Florida. But to think, if you're a Ravens fan, that these two could be married to one another for a number of years is exciting.
It is, and really that whole young receiving core, that's part of the potential the Ravens have, that they can all grow with Lamar. I mean, Marquise looked like he was ready for week one, the first day of training camp. What he's done with his body in the offseason and being healthy now, we're all expecting big things for him. And then we look at Lamar, too. I mean, he's a guy that Lamar could never really fly under the radar, but for the past week or so, you know, he's, to me, kind of like, okay, fine-tuning things and getting ready to start. You know, athletes, especially great athletes, they almost have a body clock when it's time to go. And I think Lamar, he's been hungry for the start of this season ever since last season ended. And he senses it's getting closer. I think he loves the way the young receivers are coming along. Obviously, the running game, you know, is the backbone of the offense. And Lamar, I think this year it's going to be not only just looking at his stats, looking at his command of the offense and some of the throws that he makes, the consistency. You know, it's a tough act to follow what he put last year, but if there's anybody who can do it, it's Lamar.
Well, Cliff, they're getting closer to being out on the field here for this somewhat live scrimmage. We know that you would all love to watch it, but for obviously competitive reasons, we can't do that. But make sure to stay locked into all of the Ravens media apps and content providers, because there will be full breakdowns and recaps of what should be a fun night here at the stadium. Cliff, always good to be with you. That'll do it for us here on Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity. We'll be back Monday at 9 a.m. for another episode. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Thanks for watching.